Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here, back from the rain of Budapest. Beautiful city, lots of rain. Although I'm told from Spurs fans who stayed out there an extra day that apparently today is a really nice day. Of course it is. That would make sense that I've spent, 3 days with an umbrella up pretty much the entire time. Looking like the Wally with the brolly, walking around. It is a beautiful city. It's lovely. But obviously when it's raining, you're kind of just like seeing it through the rain. I don't know why I was doing that under an umbrella, but you know what I mean. Met loads of lovely Spurs fans out there. Starting on the ridiculous 6 a.m. flight that a few of us took on Wednesday morning from Stansted. My goodness. If you think I'm looking bleary-eyed now, which is doing this quite early in the morning, we all looked very bleary-eyed after like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. alarm clock calls. Yeah, that was an early one. But worth it. Definitely worth it. Yeah, loads of Spurs fans. I mean, there was an allocation. It was quite a smaller allocation than normal. It was about 1,200 Spurs fans out there, I think it was. Saw them all around the town, some on the flight home, even saw them outside the airport when I got back. And yeah, lots of funny little chats. Shout out to the drunk man, the Spurs fan on the metro back on Thursday night after the game, who bellowed at me, "You're not as pretty as you look in your videos," which I took as a huge compliment because nobody has ever called me pretty in videos or reality or anything. Certainly not feeling it today. I'm feeling absolutely knackered. Look at the bags under the eyes. My word. But yeah, it was a very funny chap in a very funny group of Spurs fans on our trip back. We were kind of dissecting the game together. But yeah, I just loved that. It did make me chuckle. I think I said something like "thanks," I think. But yeah, good time was had mostly by all. I know some of the Spurs fans were telling me that there were ticket problems ahead of the game. It doesn't sound like it was a simple process picking them up whatsoever. I think there was long delays. I think some people didn't even get their tickets. So yeah, not very perfect. Not very perfect. Not perfect grammar there. Not well done there. By I don't know where that falls down. Whether it's between the two clubs, whether it's UEFA. Probably somewhere in the middle, I'd imagine. But yeah, there was a few people telling me about their experiences after the game and also on the flight back. So yeah, not great. Hopefully that rights itself for the remaining away trips. But yeah, on away trips, Tottenham don't really do European away wins. They just don't. I must admit, it was a reporter from TNT Sports who was at the game who I didn't realise how bad it was. Going into Thursday night in Budapest, Spurs had only won one of their last 9 European trips away. That's just mad. I mean, I kind of sat and I thought about it, and I'm going to make you think about it because I had to go through this pain as well. So think Mura. I know, try not to shudder at the thought of, I've had to, that was dreadful. Sporting, those 2 late goals, Vitesse, Pesos de Ferreira. I was there. That was like, was that as we were starting to come out of the pandemic? And I think I was the only UK journalist there. Nuno walked into his press conference and was like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" Yeah, that was pretty dreadful. That was obviously a very, very heavily rotated team with loads of academy kids. And obviously you definitely have to think Zagreb. A horrendous night under Jose and Hugo Lloris coming out and blasting the team afterwards. But we'll stop there. You get the gist. We don't want to think about those nights. Maybe think about the one before, which was Marseille. That had a good ending to it all. But yeah, the ultimate kind of message of all of that is Spurs do struggle on the road. European away days are far tougher than I think people kind of give them credit for. I think we look at them on paper and we see the fact that, it's some team in, in this case, Hungary, and we just kind of dismiss it with a little bit of, I guess, football snobbery, that kind of thing. But then when you're actually inside those stadiums, those travelling fans will know the atmosphere is big. There's a real kind of willingness. The home players really kind of up their levels a few times because of the crowd's probably bigger than normal. There's this passion around the place and a pride, a feeling that they have to kind of perform in this scenario when there's such a big game. And also Ferencvaros, they're top of their Hungarian top flight, 6 wins out of 6, scored, I think it was 12 goals, only conceded twice. They're no mugs. They're not just teams that just like rock up over like a pub side or something. So that's why these away days are tricky. I mean, yeah, Spurs have got a dreadful record also. There's definitely a mentality thing there as well. But yeah, you can never go to these games and just write them off as they should be easy. So yeah, when we saw that Postecoglou had named 4 teenagers in his starting lineup, there was a part of me that was like, oh, that's really cool. How great to see these kind of young players all doing what they do. But then you could also probably hear the football gods in the background. Shortly, here we go again, lads. Come on, what are we going to do to them this time? What ridiculous late goal are we going to provide, or insipid performance are we going to ensure Spurs bring? But I guess the good thing about young players, they don't really follow the script. They kind of aren't. They don't have that fear. They don't go into these games weighed down by the past. And if you look back at some of those defeats we've just spoken about, other than the Pesos one, where yes, there were quite a few academy players used, a lot of those games were heavily rotated in certain aspects. There were still a few star players in there, but heavily rotated with kind of senior fringe players and like the sounds awful to say, but the B team of sorts. Whereas I actually felt like he got the blend pretty nailed it down, really, Postecoglou, because this was a game where you have to, you have to take into account that there was a Brighton match, as we know, tomorrow now, but at that point, after the final whistle, 2.5 days later. So you've got to take that into your planning and your thinking. You've got to understand that going to a place like the Amex against a team, a high energy team, I think they had the week off as well, Brighton. They're going to be at full strength, full energy. And if you can't compete with that, you're kind of going to be stuffed, especially with the kind of football Spurs want to play. So he had to make changes. And I mean, the age thing was quite interesting because we had the 4 teenagers, of course, but we also had Pat Matasar, who's 22 years old. And you kind of look at that, and I think it was Sam Dean from the Telegraph was trying to work out the average age for us, and we were all expecting it to be really low. And then he was like, no, it's actually almost 24. And that's because, although he had the 4 teenagers and Sarr, Pedro Porro and captain for the night, Christian Romero, were probably then the youngest at 25 and 26. But then you have Basuma, Davies, Werner, Vicario. And it's actually quite an experienced side guiding these 4 younger players. And on the whole, it worked pretty well. Yeah, I'd say the first 20 minutes, it took them a while to adjust. Of course, it always takes a little while. You're going to have to ride a little bit of a storm, like I say, with the crowd and the home side throwing themselves essentially at you, and not in a kind of fan type way, but just wave after wave of trying to get the ball forward and pinging it directly at the goal. And obviously they had the brilliantly named Barnabas Varga had his goal ruled out for a marginal offside. It was offside looking at the line, but it was marginal. And Vicario made a brilliant reaction save. I think that was from Varga as well, but the ball had already gone out of play. Amazing reaction save. Sometimes he just pulls those up and you think, where in the world did that come from? Of course, he didn't know it had gone out of play, but certainly, yeah, they started well, the home side, but then you kind of felt Spurs started to get a bit of a grip of the game. I obviously wasn't listening to the commentary back home, but people were kind of saying that the commentary back home was really quite negative and saying Spurs had played awfully and all that. And I didn't see that. This was, like I say, had a real kind of young spine within this team mixed with a few experienced heads. And I actually felt they dealt with the occasion pretty well on the whole. They're pretty good. Yeah, I mean, I was just looking at the chances I've noted down early on. Yeah, of course, Will Lancashire making his debut up front. Timo Werner did a really good early move, got down to the byline, pinged the ball across, and he kind of went like that and tried to get his head to it, and he just mistimed it. It hit his shoulder and bounced over. That was like one of the first chances. Who was it? Sarr had a shot early on as well. 23 minutes, of course, Sarr scored, which was 3 of the teenagers involved. Mikey Moore. Don't worry, we're going to talk a lot about Mikey Moore. He was just so up for it from the start. He was so not fazed by the occasion whatsoever. 17 years, I was only 17 in August as well. And he just, drove inside, flicked the ball, a little bit of an element of luck because the defender it was almost like at the back of their heel, deflected it centrally. Will Lancashire actually did really well. Not a lot have been made of this, but he battled, and this was very much his performance in a nutshell, battled really well to get this little touch on the ball. And that touch just caused issues in the middle. And then the defending was horrendous after that. I think the ball, I've tried to watch the slow-mo a million times from different angles. I think the ball is, a defender tries to knock it away, knocks it against Bergvall, who's falling, and the ball deflects off of him into the path of Sarr, who then is very, very composed and slots it in the bottom left corner. Back-to-back European goals for Pat Matasar as well. So yeah, they create more. This is what I mean about the whole negative spin on it. I was surprised by that because Sarr and Moore both then tested the goalkeeper. Porro hit the post with an effort that Lancashire was inches away from his toe, just poking it in. After the break, Ed Romero had a header that was tipped over the bar. Lancashire hit that volley that bounced into the ground and just over the crossbar as well. There was a lovely move when Archie Gray looked to be penned in his own, like the right-hand corner by the Spurs box. And he did this beautiful drag-back heel. Knocked the ball, I think it was maybe to Davies, who played it to Basuma. Basuma runs up the pitch, plays it into the path of Lancashire. And at the last second, it was a terrific challenge from a Ferencvaros player who got his foot to it and stopped it, what should have been a goal, really. Then we had the big moment when I think it was Sarr put Mikey Moore away down the right. He raced up the pitch, Timo Werner in the middle. Mikey Moore puts a perfect ball across to Timo Werner. And I wonder with Timo Werner whether there was an element of, I don't know if you remember in the last video, we were speaking about the misses that Werner had at Old Trafford. And especially the first one for me, I said that I felt with the momentum that Onana had coming out, that actually maybe the best move for Werner would have been to round the keeper. And hopefully put it into then an empty net rather than taking the shot. He kind of tried to squeeze it like through the legs past the goalkeeper. And I wonder whether someone on the training pitch, by pure coincidence, not because they're saying, oh, just a goal said it, so it must be true. I don't know anyone that speaks on the training, the coaching staff like that. But whether they said, you could have maybe rounded the keeper. And so maybe that stuck in his head. And then he came to doing this. And he's like, oh, yeah, round the keeper. And he's gone to do it. But it was completely the wrong thing in this moment because the keeper just moved with him. And he also had a very heavy touch, Werner, and took it really wide. And then it was kind of got to the point where you're like, no, don't try the shot now. Don't try the shot. You don't need to. Try and stop the ball and pull it across to someone that's running in. Now you've had a shot. And it just went to side netting. So, yeah, you had that as well. But ultimately, it was left to the hitman, the man of the moment, Brennan Johnson, to do what he does best nowadays, which is score goals. He sent one terrific shot against the crossbar. I thought we were all like rewriting our stats because obviously it was 4 goals, 4 games, 4 consecutive games. And we're all like, we're going to have to change that now to 4 goals in 4 starts. And then, of course, he comes up with a lovely goal. Another one I've had to watch a lot of times from different angles to try and work out if something I thought happened did. And I'm still not entirely sure whether it did or not. So, James, it all starts again with Mikey Moore on another driving run. The ball eventually comes back to Maddison. Maddison hits like a bit of a lofted ball into the box. Brendan Johnson takes a lovely touch, the touch of a man that is confident. And he takes the ball down. And then he uses his left foot to kind of curl the ball inside, off the left-hand post and into the goal. There was one angle where I thought it got the slightest of brushes off a defender's leg as it went between the player's legs. But then every other angle, I couldn't then see that. So it doesn't matter. Ultimately, it was still a really nice finish. But Brennan Johnson just... it's incredible. I think we're all just going to be like, come on, like every game now. So do you remember, was it Jermaine Defoe did it for Bournemouth on loan, wasn't it, when he was at West Ham? I think was it 10 in a row? It's just been trying to guess that. I think it was something like that. It would be amazing if Brendan Johnson just keeps going. But, every goal's been important as well, which is like the key thing as well. I think 3 of them winners and then the other 2 quite important goals in the scheme of things as well. Spurs did lose their clean sheet in added time. It was a good goal, to be fair. There's defensive aspects, of course, you can look at. Porro maybe giving, I think it was a left back, too much time to cross the ball. And then maybe Romero and Davies allowing Varga to get in between them. But it was a lovely finish. It was a really, if a Spurs player had slid in and finished the ball that well, we would have probably been talking about their movement and their finishing. And it was a good goal. So you've got to give them credit to that degree. But yeah, a reshuffled team, 4 teenagers. And Spurs still had 58% of the possession, 17 shots at goal, 7 on target. The Ferencvaros keeper had to make 5 saves, and their defence needed to make 28 clearances. Here's a stat for you. Spurs became the first English side to beat Ferencvaros in Hungary in 55 years. It's not easy. It really isn't easy. And I thought this was one of those, I know it's a cliche, but like a professional job on the road. They went there, they did it with a reshuffle. How many times, we know it, we've just spoken about it, the amount of times Spurs will reshuffle their side and they'll go somewhere like that and they'll be absolutely dreadful. But what I really like the fact that's kind of happening now, other than the fact this is Spurs' 5th win in a row, third away win as well on that run, which shows kind of that character. But it also shows what we've kind of been trying to say, that Postecoglou's squad is starting to be fit for purpose for what he wants. So whereas last year, when he was making changes, he was bringing in players that didn't quite fit the system that he wanted to play, and the football would look utterly different. And like I remember, Wolves away was a great example when the football was just like, ugh, like what is that? There's nothing like the Postecoglou football. Whereas in a game like this, he can make changes and the football, the philosophy is still the same. That's the crux of the whole thing. That's the whole point of revamping the squad in his image, is that you can have nights like that when, yeah, you're going to notice a little bit of a difference in terms of the young players coming in and they're still getting their cohesion, this kind of, I don't want to call them other group because they're going to play in Premier League matches as well as the season goes on. But this kind of group of players aren't quite that used to playing with each other yet. But you're seeing with each progressive game, they are more and more. Not Mikey Moore, but also Mikey Moore. And yeah, I just think you can see that the football now is retained. And that's a huge thing because it allows them then to be able to slip into whichever game they're playing in with each other players. They're going to start to know each other's games. They're going to know the football. These young players are going to come in and it's going to make no difference to the quality. Perhaps even in a good way, the difference will be. So I asked him after the game, essentially said, 4 teenagers, a European away win, you've got to be happy with that. And he said, yeah, I am. Irrespective of who you play in Europe away, it's always a challenge. You saw the atmosphere the crowd create. They really get behind their team and the conditions as well. So there's a whole range of things you need to deal with. Obviously, we made quite a number of changes to the team, including putting the young boys in, but I thought they handled it really, really well. We needed to defend and defend well. We played some good football and created some good chances. Maybe could have had a couple more. And most importantly, we won an away European tie, which I think is credit to the lads. It is, and like I say, it's the rare commodity, European wins on the road. It's actually more than 3 years since they won 5 games in a row, Spurs, in all competitions. I love the fact he's kind of, after all this kind of hullabaloo, if we're going to use that word, what was it, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, kind of the whole narrative has changed right now. And it just feels like this is just the beginning. This is it. Now we're starting to see the seeds of really what he's been trying to implant actually starting to grow. And this is with players out. And the more of them come back, and we'll talk about that towards the end of this, various players coming back and how that's also going to impact things. So yeah, we have to talk about Mikey Moore. Of course, we've got to talk about Mikey Moore. I was so absolutely made up for him. Not only him, of course, mainly him because of the work he's put in to get to this stage, but just everyone. The coaches that have worked with him at a youth level, whether that's Stuart Lewis, Bradley Allen for the under-18s, and Wayne Bennett's had him a couple of times, the under-21s as well. But all of the coaches throughout the age groups as Mikey's come through. And of course, his family as well, who's supported him, no doubt, through all of this. Yeah, I've seen Mikey around the training ground a fair few times. I saw him out on the tours as well. And he is exactly what you'd expect. It's very kind of, when you're talking to him or saying hello and stuff like that, or you see him interacting with kind of more senior people, very polite, quite quiet, not shy, but quiet. But when you see him, I might have mentioned this before, I've seen him a few times, because what happens is, even if you're in the first team, if you're one of the young players that's come from the academy, you still are part of the academy, regardless of whether you train with the first team. It will take you a while to kind of be considered a first team player. I think it's part of the mentality of how they want you to keep kind of learning and striving to be a full part of the first team, even if you're playing and training with them. So Mikey Moore and Will Lancashire will still come in through the academy entrance at Hotspur Way. They'll come in through the main reception, which is the same one we use to go to the press conferences and everything, and they'll sit in the reception area sometimes like we do. I remember Oliver Skip, it might have been 2 to 3 years, he was still coming through that entrance and being part of the academy, even though he'd long been playing regularly for the first team. So yeah, I've seen Mikey a few times hanging around, sitting in the reception area, waiting for often the bus to take them to like an under-18s match or something like that. And he's exactly in those aspects. Mostly that would have been when he was 16, because he only turned 17 start of August. He was like a 16-year-old. He was exactly what you would imagine if you walked into, I don't know, either a classroom with a group of 16-year-olds or like even a McDonald's with a load of 16-year-olds. They were just laughing, enjoying themselves. He was a bit of a joker, kind of one of the lads, winding his mates up, things like that. And I love the fact that even though he was so highly regarded, as always in these sort of situations, his young teammates, they didn't treat him any differently. They know how good he is, and in matches, of course, they're going to try and get him the ball as much as possible. But out of it, they're just a bunch of lads just enjoying it all. And yeah, take him out of that, though. Extract Mikey Moore and put him into the first team environment. And he does become a little bit more naturally quieter, which is just a kind of a status thing, as he knows that, he's just kind of, he's at the beginning of his journey. But like I say, very polite but not shy, because I think players that have that inner ability have that, they know what they can do, and that gives them a sense of confidence about feeling that they deserve to be part of that like setup. They don't feel out of place. And even on the tour, I saw him a couple of times in Japan and Korea, but there was one time in Japan I remember seeing him. He was being taken off to, I think it was his first like a community event they have to go to do, which he would have been 16 at the time because it was July. And at 16 years old, can you imagine, I don't know, being taken out of school and being taken on some trip, almost like a trip with the teachers to go to, I don't know, Parliament or something. And you can just imagine they'd be like, ugh. And Mikey wasn't like that. He was very, I think it was an excitement and a real kind of trying to soak up the experience of what he was doing. And again, like I say, quite quiet, but I also think that trip for him was a really important one, and for Will Lancashire as well, in terms of bonding with the group. Really, a lot of those senior players on that tour, I felt, and from what I understand, took him under their wing. And, they can see how good he is. And I think there's a sense of wanting to play a part in his journey. You see a player with that like remarkable talent that he's got, and you kind of think to yourself, like, oh, let's help him get there. Let's get him to where he needs to be, because all of these senior players at some point in their career, they'll have done something a little bit daft. They'll have fallen into certain pitfalls that have slowed their progress or something that hasn't quite been right. And they'll be able to bring that experience to someone like Mikey and say, look, don't do that. You don't need to. Or do this. It's really good for you. Here's a little trick or tip for you. A little bit of advice that will help you and stuff like that. And I got that sense talking to players and members of staff over that tour that there was a real kind of collective taking him under their wing. And they all just said how mature he was and how he dealt with everything as well. Yeah, James Maddison was actually asked about him on Wednesday at the press conference in Budapest at the Groupama Stadium. Although it wasn't called that for the day. It was called Ferencvaros Stadion. I don't know if that's just a UEFA thing or whether they don't use that name in certain matches. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But yeah, Maddison was very good. What I do like they're doing now is we used to have this situation where press conferences before European games, the player and the manager would be sat next to each other. And I never really liked that because you would have instances where you'd want to ask the manager one thing and then the player wouldn't get asked very many questions, or even the aspect of you might want to ask a player a question which they might answer differently if they've got the manager sat right next to them, and it often made it a bit like the stock answer thing. But to separate the two press conferences, which is what they're doing now, is so much better. And especially someone like Maddison. Maddison's a good talker. He'll give you loads of stuff. He enjoys, I wouldn't say loves it. I don't think anybody loves it, but he's very good. I'm pretty certain that he'll end up being a pundit one day. He likes taking your question, having a little think about it, and giving you a decent answer. And yeah, he was asked about Mike. I think it was George Sessions from PA asked him, and he said, Mikey, when he first came up, I had to remind myself how young he actually is. When he first came up, he was 16 and more of like a man already. When I watch him play, he's very powerful. He's only going to get stronger as he develops into his body. It's quite scary. He's got a lot of ability, but I don't want him to feel any pressure because he's getting a lot of people talking about him, and rightly so. And that's down to him training well, getting in the first team and getting exposure, which is what he wants. Firstly, he's a great kid. Really polite and well-mannered young man, which is a credit to his family. Because as a senior player with a young lad coming up, that's the first thing you recognise. You don't want a young lad coming up with that arrogance and that who does he think he is kind of mentality, which the players would have. And then his ability on the ball. We've seen it in training, and Spurs fans will be keen to see it more in games, but we see it in training. He's got bags of ability, and it looks to me as if he loves the game, loves playing. He gets tackled, sometimes falls on the floor and jumps up as if nothing's happening. Nothing's happened, and he wants the ball again. So I'm really excited to see how his journey goes and try to help him as much as I can. I always try to have a little chat with him because I think, what would a 16-year-old James Maddison want? And he would want one of the senior first-team players to put an arm around him and, one, treat him like a man, but also give him advice to try and help him and accelerate that success and living the journey he's going to have. He's got to go and do it when he gets the opportunity, and I'm sure he will. And I'm sure he's keen and eager to get going and get more minutes. I'm looking forward to it. So you might remember I also asked Sonny about him the week before in his press conference about Mikey Moore, and he told me then, fantastic boy. Coming from the academy, you as a club, look after him even more. He's such a lovely kid, working hard every single day. Coming with the first team with that age, it's not easy. You know, it's like sometimes you're very shy, but he's showing good personality and working hard, which is very important to me. When you see the young players working hard in the first team, you just want to help. You want to help him. Just having him around me and just talking about things, because we're playing in a similar position. If I can help him a little bit with advice, then I'm always open to it. Mikey is also coming to me most of the time and asking questions, which is very fun. I enjoy talking to him. He's a fantastic boy. And I'm definitely sure he can be a fantastic player. There's no doubt, because he's such an amazing ability. But as we always say about young players, let's don't give him too much pressure on his shoulders. Let's just enjoy how he develops, how he improves every single day, every single season. And as a fan, as supporters, we should just enjoy watching him. And he will be, I think, one of the top players. So you can see there instantly exactly everything I was saying earlier. Two big senior players within the squad, two very experienced players, all or both wanting to really help him with his journey, his development, and being part of what he can become. And two great examples for him. You know, he's got some lovely examples in the team right now. You've got Sonny, been there, done it. A winger who can be a striker, he can score goals, can be direct in his dribbling, can score those lovely curling goals from outside the box that Mikey likes to try as well. And you've got James Maddison, who can be a playmaker, play those balls through, works hard, gets back, tackles. And then you've also got other people like Brennan Johnson, Deki Kulusevski as well. You've got some great people within there to kind of look at and take all these different aspects. There's a lovely little cross-section of attacking midfielders and wingers right now that Mikey can just extrapolate whatever he wants from them and the lessons he can learn. So, you know, you could end up with this incredible hybrid of all of them. But also, ultimately, just Mikey Moore. He will be very much his own young man. He really will. So all eyes, of course, were on his debut. Postecoglou has been careful with him because he doesn't. I've said this a million times. You don't want to stunt their progress when they're young players. You don't want to throw them in the wrong situation. And look, some people might have thought, oh, you know, pouring rain, soaking wet pitch, heavy pitch, the noise in Budapest, maybe it might not be the best one. But I think Postecoglou just knew it wouldn't faze him, and it just was exactly that. He didn't care in the slightest about the occasion, the noise, the weather. Every time he got the ball, he just went wrong, just straight forward. Christian Ramirez, the left back, he was just, his number was 99. He probably, if he was in the UK, would want to add another 9 to that and ring emergency services, because he was having emergencies and issues every single time Mikey Moore went at him. Just would have had an absolute banging headache by the end of it all. It was terrific. They were strange. Both teams were playing in green, which made no sense. Apparently, Spurs had wanted to, or had indicated they would play in their away strip, to which UEFA apparently said there was too similar. So the solution to that was getting to play in their green third kit against a team with green in their kit. Don't even try and understand it. It doesn't make any sense. But yeah, if you want the perfect stat, and I know we can say stats can be used to this, stats can be used, but this one absolutely, you can't take this any other way. If you want the perfect stat to show how much Mikey Moore attacked this game, and also how much his teammates trusted him with the ball, is how many times he touched the ball. So a winger, on average, you're probably looking between 30 and 40 touches of the ball. Striker can be anywhere between, it can be as low as 10, 15 touches, because mostly they're battling away up front without getting the ball, or it could be around 30, 40. Always remember Sonny away in the North London derby last season had something like so few touches. It was it 8 or 12 or 14, something like that. It was so few, but he still scored 2 goals. So I'm going to tell you, Mikey Moore had 70 touches on Thursday night of the ball, which just says everything. That's just 6 fewer than Yves Bissouma, who obviously is the fulcrum of everything that kind of Spurs play would go through, the man in the middle of the midfield. Just for context for you, Sarr, who was just moving around the pitch constantly and getting the ball, only 56 times he touched it. Lucas Berraval, 48. Will Lancashire, as I said up top, strikers don't often get the ball much. 18 times he touched the ball. His was more about battling off the ball, which we'll talk about a little bit. Timo Werner on the other side, 31 touches of the ball. 2 or 3 of those came in that missed chance as well for him, because Mikey should have had an assist really for his debut. But yeah, it's. I loved what Mikey did. He was just fearless. He brought everything that I think we kind of hoped he would. 2 shots at goal. One really lovely low volley that kind of showed off all of his technique from outside the box. And like I say, had a hand in both the Spurs play because of his progressive dribbling and trying to get up the pitch. And I like the fact that he showed a lot of unpredictability in his play. He was quite happy doing the Postecoglou thing of getting high and wide and staying up there, cutting the ball across the 6-yard box. But he also absolutely comfortable cutting inside, playing more centrally, and he was developing quite a nice partnership with Pedro Porro. I thought that they linked up really well, because Mikey was about an hour on the right hand side, and when Timo Werner went off around 64 minutes, Mikey switched to the left hand side, which is actually his more kind of favoured position, because he likes to cut inside and have a shot. But in the Postecoglou system, you're probably going to want him more often to be on that right hand side, because then he can stay far up there. But also, I think Postecoglou will like his unpredictability. You have someone like Kulusevski who would always cut inside, whereas with Mikey, you don't know which way he's going to go, and that's going to add a huge kind of aspect to Spurs attacking play the more and more he gets chances there. And obviously, Brendan Johnson is not getting dislodged from the right wing slot anytime soon, the way he's playing. Just out of interest, when we talk about the amount of touches, other than Bissouma, Mikey had the most touches of the midfield and attack. But the man who actually had the most touches, Pedro Porro, 120 times he touched the ball. It's just the amount of times they try and get him the ball, because he is just such an important part of the getting the ball forward and the progressive play. And I actually forgot to mention, I actually don't think I noticed it. I don't know when I did the last video, whether I'd even realised at that point, but I saw a video someone did. If you haven't seen it, the pass Pedro Porro at Old Trafford played to Solanke. Oh my God, it's just amazing. Just this beautiful cut across volley into Solanke's path, which, I can't believe, you look back and you think, oh, Solanke had scored that. It'd been one of the goals of the season, because anyone else plays that pass and it is heralded as, oh, look what Messi did, look what De Bruyne did, or whatever. And I just don't think Pedro Porro got enough credit for that. But to be fair, I didn't even notice it in the match. I think maybe I saw the ball and didn't see how it had got there. It's just phenomenal. He's back in the Spain squad as well, Pedro. He's doing very well. So yeah, after the game, Mikey Moore had to do his first interviews, first ever post-match interview in terms of, just not a club one. And they... I know Spurs are trying to kind of protect him a little bit. You don't want to throw a just 17-year-old into media duty straight away. But yeah, he was put up for this TNT Sports interview. Had Ben Davies, the experienced stalwart alongside him. And he did well, Mikey. Did. I'm stitching together a few of his answers because, of course, as I always say, with younger players, the answers are a little bit shorter. And they always... end the sentence. And I think I said this about Archie Gray, although Archie Gray is very experienced with interviews already because of the kind of exposure he's had over the last year to 18 months or so. But they always had something on the end of their first answer, yeah, so yeah. And that's how they end it. It's really kind of, it's quite amusing. It's a little thing that as they get older, they'll start taking that out of it. So I was stitching together a couple of his answers, but there was good stuff. He was asked about kind of when he found out he was in the team. He said, to be fair, I only knew about 4 p.m. today. So yeah, it came quick, but I was ready to take it. It is what you work for. Obviously, there's a bit of nerves coming into it, but once you get on the pitch, you're all right. It's a big step, but it is one I'm ready to take. It's been all right. All the boys have helped me, and it's been really perfect so far. On Postecoglou's input, he added, he's given me little tips all the time, really. To be fair, him putting me in the team, you get the trust straight away. So I'm thankful for him starting me and putting his trust in me. He is helping me all the time, but so are all of the coaching staff. He spoke really well. I can't even imagine myself at just turned 17, what I'd be like trying to do a TV interview. I would be a stammering, stuttering mess, just not really knowing what to say and going so yeah. Some might say like these videos. He kind of did a club interview as well that was quite interesting, where he was talking about stuff like how he shuts out the noise of the visiting fans, doesn't even hear them really, doesn't let them get him in his head, and how it's a special feeling to be able to play in the team with Will Lancashire, who obviously he knows so well from the academy and having played alongside each other. I had this dreadful realisation at one point that Archie, the whole left-hand side in the second half with Archie Gray, it was because Archie Gray switched to left back. Archie Gray and Mikey Moore combined age was younger than me in total. just to feel really old. But hey, that's football. That is football. And Ben Davies, who is almost twice Mikey Moore's age himself, was asked about him, and he said, look, this is nothing new to us. We see it every day in training. Mikey works so hard every single day to get these opportunities. So when they come, we had no doubts that these young players would be ready, and I thought he was very good tonight. And what was great for Mikey was that he played the entire 95 minutes. You'd imagine a player in that situation, just 17 years old, you would probably take him off, after the hour mark or so, but he didn't. He was slightly tired towards the end. He wasn't quite able to track back as much as I think he would have liked to. But I thought he showed remarkable fitness. Bearing in mind, he's only played 90 minutes once this season for Spurs. Let's have a look. I've got this written down here. He's only played... Sorry, no, twice. I thought as soon as I said once, it didn't make sense. It was twice. It was once for last month for England under the 19s and once back in August for Spurs under 21. So he hasn't been playing regular 90 minutes. He's just been getting bits here and there because mainly he's been with the first team squad. So when he has played for the under 21s, they maybe haven't pushed him too much because they didn't want him to kind of pick up anything and be out of the first team reckoning. But yeah, I asked Postecoglou about Mikey after the game, and he said, I thought he was outstanding. It's brilliant for a 17-year-old to play 90-plus minutes in a European away tie. He just handled it superbly. I kind of knew he would. I think it'll help his growth as a footballer once you get through a sort of experience like that. I think he'll grow and evolve, and didn't feel like I needed to take him off. He just still looked strong at the end and was still contributing. It's just his ability to deal with pressure and keeping the ball in really tight areas and making really good, clean decisions for a young guy. It's not easy today out there. You can see the conditions. It always suits defenders because they can fly in with tackles, and you get one. And he got one in the first 30 seconds. But he kept his feet well, and he takes responsibility of driving inside or taking his man on. He makes good decisions with the ball. He's got so much growth still. But the good thing is he wants to learn, he wants to develop, and I couldn't be happier for him. But also pretty pleased that he's part of our football club. And that's absolutely true. I think Madison pointed out as well that Mikey doesn't lie on the floor and roll around. That's my fear. If you see him do that, it's probably because he's injured. He got a couple of bad injuries last season. I think one to his ankle. I'm trying to remember what the other one was. Maybe his shoulder. I can't remember. But yeah, he just bounces back up, which is quite a rare quality. And I think it is a lot to do with he is quite powerful for his age as well. And I think it doesn't get kind of whacked too easily. But yeah, he's still got more strength to do as well. It's going to be such a scary prospect. And look, I know we've said this before. There's a kind of this feeling nowadays where people are like, however young they are, if you're good enough, you're old enough. That kind of mentality. And I think a lot of people point to in the past you'd always say, oh, Wayne Rooney was 16, put him in there. And now I think Lamine Yamal is the current example where you're just like, yeah, look at them and they can do it, so just play them. And Postecoglou was asked about that. I think it was Tom Barkley who asked, essentially, is the game changing now where we're seeing more emphasis on younger players and the likes of Yamal coming through? And yeah, he kind of, bearing in mind Postecoglou has brought a lot of young players through over the years and given them their chances. There's kind of narrative about him not doing that at Spurs, but he hasn't been the right time to do that in certain circumstances. So he spoke about this and he answered that question on whether football is changing, while also you could still kind of sense the excitement about Mikey within what he was saying. He said, I wouldn't say that, that the game has shifted to being one of like wonder kids and the like. He said, I mean, how many 17-year-olds are playing in the Premier League? Yeah, Yamal is brilliant, obviously, in Spain, but it's not a common thing. It's still pretty rare because you have to take into account not just their physical maturity at 17 of being able to handle it, their emotional maturity, but you've just got to be really careful. There's always exceptions to the rules, and Yamal is certainly one of them. But like I said, if you look at the Premier League, how many 17-year-olds are actually contributing? And Mikey is already, which shows that he's got something special. But we've just got to be really careful about how we develop that. I think because it's too easy to just say, oh, he's a great young player, just throw him in there. Especially in the Premier League, because of all the leagues probably in Europe, it's the most physically challenging. So young players, the first things that I want to see is can they handle it? And to be fair, Mikey handles it pretty well. And certainly Archie and Lucas have that as well, but we've got to be careful with them. At the same time, though, we've brought some really talented players, young players to the club, and part of my pitch to them was that we will develop them and they will play, and it's my responsibility to make sure they do that. I can't shy away from that because the next 18 or 17-year-old who I sign will point to recent experience. So it's important we give them the game time they deserve. And this is the thing. I think Spurs fans will probably want Mikey to be thrown straight in again against Brighton at the Amex on tomorrow. I'd say that's a big ask. Look, I would love to see Mikey playing more games. Of course I would. I think he's going to. He's going to get more game time. But like I said, he's barely played 90 minutes, just twice this season. Once in September, once in August. And I think having played 95 minutes, draining minutes on that heavy, wet pitch in Budapest, and then 2.5 days later, throwing him out there against a very energetic, physical Brighton side, who have all had the week off, I probably wouldn't do it. I think, again, that I could end up being completely wrong. He might be used and he might be absolutely incredible. And I hope he is. That'd be wonderful. I just feel like there's a little bit of a risk there in either him getting injured or just him not being able to have the impact that he normally would if he was fresher. Because look, Son looks like he's not going to be available. I'm pretty sure he's not going to be available. And I think the fact that Timo Werner only played 64 minutes suggests that he's going to be the one that's going to play. But then you've got Mikey to be able to bring off the bench. And that's the important thing, I think, of a game like Thursday night, was that Postecoglou now has seen Mikey Moore do it properly for a prolonged spell, and he can see him and think, okay, I now know that I can bring you on with not just the last 5-10 minutes of the game, if that, I can bring you on with half an hour to go, and you're going to go out there and you're going to make a difference and you can handle it and you won't be phased. So I don't think he has to be thrown straight into the lineup now. I think you can continue this build-up of his minutes, give him bits and pieces in the Premier League and then eventually give him starts there. But also you can start him. Now you've looked at the European, he can start all the European games now if need be. And that's given him regular starts and given him the development he wants while also using him in the Premier League teams. I personally feel like that's the right way to go. And trust me, no one is more excited about the ability and potential Mikey Moore has than me. Having been very fortunate to see him in the youth setup coming through and things like that, and knowing what he's going to become, and speaking to people that work with him day in, day out. But also, I know how important the pathway is, and the kind of, I don't want to use the word cautious because that's almost like you're dampening him down, but making sure that you do it in the right way at the right time in the right stages. How many players we're seeing that has kind of started young also and getting burnt out as well, or getting big injuries early in their career because they're being overused too quickly. There's so much to it, and look, I know people will call for him, and I know if Timo Werner starts on Sunday, there's going to be outcry when the team is announced, but I do think it's also quite logical. And there's going to be an interesting rivalry, I think, now between Spurs and Arsenal's 17-year-olds, because Arsenal obviously have got Ethan Nwaneri, different kind of player, slightly different position, but obviously a talented lad as well. So I think there's going to be a little bit of the two clubs kind of like, oh, we've got the better wonder kid kind of thing. And they're international teammates, play for England under 19s together. And but yeah, very excited about what's to come from Mikey, because this was a great full debut. It felt like one of those nights where you're kind of quite cool to say you were there. Hopefully that was the first of many starts for Mikey over the years to come. And obviously he wasn't the only one. There were these 4 teenagers in the team. George Sessions put it to him after the game that, you've got the Busby Babes, you've got Fergie's Fledglings. Could this be time for Angie's Angels? And he was like, "Wow!" He's like, cut him off as quickly as he could. He was like, "No, you got to do better than that. No chance," he said with a grin. He liked the effort, but just thought it stank. It was quite good. All the other ones I was thinking of, Postecoglou's pupils, which sounds a bit weird. I heard yesterday at the press conference that it was weird. They did like an 11 a.m. press conference when none of us who were on the European trip and managed it were back. So there was like loads of different journalists in the room. And I think someone suggested Postecoglou's protégés, which is very wordy. And I think he made a joke about you struggled to even say that, didn't you? We'll see whether Angie's Angels eventually sticks. I think it's more like Angie's Little Angels. I think Angie's Angels almost sounds like they're all kind of dead or something. I don't know. It almost works. Postecoglou's pupils, I think that was my one. It definitely sounds too kind of school-like. It doesn't sound quite right. But, like I said, Archie Gray, Lucas Burvale, Will Lancashire, Pat Mansar's no old man. He's only 23. 22. Even Brendan Johnson, he's only 23. It's just mad. And of course, on the bench, which was great for them, Alfie Dorrington, Dante Casanova, 19 and 20 respectively, and Damola Ajayi as well, an 18-year-old winger who, I don't know if hopefully I've mentioned him a couple of times in videos. I've seen him a few times for the under-21s. Very exciting, direct kind of winger. He's only 18 as well. Great experience for all of them. But Will Lancashire, I thought he came in, handled himself really well. Didn't look out of place. I think physically, this is where maybe he has a leg up on the previous kind of strikers coming through, probably like Dane Scarlett and Troy Parrott before them. Very good technique both of them have got, and real kind of an eye for goal. But I think Will, stature-wise and physicality, he's got a bit more of a target man's body. Having interviewed him, I've stood there and you are kind of like looking up at him. He's a tall lad. And he has got the body of someone in their kind of 20s rather than the 19-year-old he is. So, the centre-backs had a tough old day in the rain trying to kind of just keep a hold of him. And like I said, he might have only had 18 touches, but a lot of his work was off the ball and his movement, and he's just cajoling and causing problems for those centre-backs. He could have had 2 goals on the day. Like I said, the early one when he got his shoulder rather than his head to Werner's cross. But again, the movement to get to that cross was great. And then also the volley where he did really well to pull back slightly. And he just scuffed it. It was Porro's cross and it went up and over the crossbar. And also, like I say, got a key touch for the first goal. Also did a nice little kind of bit of hold-up play and teed the ball up for Sarr to have a shot that was saved. And of course, he was also, in a weird alternate universe, he could have ended up with a hat-trick because he was that far away from touching home Pedro Porro's effort that hit the left-hand post. So yeah, I mean, Postecoglou said afterwards he led the line well. He got 65 minutes, and what I noticed, which was great, was every time Will Lancashire did something, Postecoglou was applauding him and shouting at him, really encouraging, shouting at him. Um, Goal would have been an icing on the cake, of course, but I think a little bit like Mikey, there was a sense of, especially, because Will scored a couple of goals in pre-season, did really well. And I think now there'll be a sense that, okay, yeah, I can bring you on in games. I can bring you on in games if Solanke's looking tired or Richardson's not available and things like that. I can bring you on, and you're going to cause problems for those defenders. Your movement is going to cause them issues, and so is your hold-up play as well. And he's got this little chance. Richardson's on the way back, but he's got this little window of essentially the Brighton game, maybe, and maybe one or two after. We'll see how Richardson goes. But he's got this chance to kind of get an opportunity or more opportunities and maybe get that Premier League debut, because I feel like Will's the kind of player that there was almost a bit of an aberration Thursday night's game, because normally when Will Lancashire gets an opportunity, he scores. I mean, we saw it with 32 goals last season. So I think he will have been playing over that header, definitely that one in his head, over and over again that he got with his shoulder in that night, and probably still to this day. But I think the next time that ball comes across, he's going to be putting it in that net. And I think we'll be talking about a Will Lancashire goal, senior goal, sooner rather than later. I thought Sarr was very good on the night as well. I thought he was excellent. Set Spurs away on so many attacks. And of course, his goal showed great composure. Lucas Berraval had some good moments. I also felt he had some moments where he held onto the ball for too long. There are a few times when he would spin away from the best pass and look for something else. And I spoke in the last video about the kind of consequences of Radu Dragusin's red card, and I said there was going to be more kind of unintended consequences. And I actually think one of them came last night, and that was in Lucas Berraval, because obviously Berraval came off in the 7th, 8th minute after his red card, so that they could balance the team. And I think he really could have benefited from an hour that night of football in his legs, because I felt that very much as the game wore on, quite quickly, really, from half-time onwards, I thought Berraval looked tired. There was quite a few times I could see him really like trying to catch his breath, struggling to get back. And we know the number 8 roles in that Postecoglou midfield, you've got to be up and down, up and down. That is why I think we're seeing someone like Kulusevski and a fully fit Maddison absolutely revel in it, because their ability to get up and down the pitch constantly. Or even in a Postecoglou, the idea is you're supposed to get to about the hour mark, and then he'll bring in at least one number 8 that's going to go in there and do that running as well. And I just think Berraval, he was struggling. And it also looked like he took a little bit of a whack at one point as well, which he was wasn't moving quite freely for a little while with, but mostly it looked like tiredness. But that will come. Again, like we say with Maddison, with Berraval, I think when he's fully fit and he's got the ability to do everything he wants to do with the foundation of the fitness, he's going to be an incredible player. But yeah, he kind of struggled a little bit, I felt, on Thursday night because of that. The one for me, other than Moore on the night, was Archie Gray. Oh, Archie Gray. Honestly, the entire row of English journalists, we were just all going like, oh my goodness, he's going to be an incredible player. You could just see it in what he does. It's not just his technical ability, which is absolutely clear. It's his confidence, but also a tactical intelligence of knowing in every moment what he's got to do with the ball. It's all up there. That's what they always say, don't they, about football? Like 90% of football is up there in the brain. And knowing what you're going to do next and having that radar around you. And it just is so incredibly versatile that you can say, go there, Archie, and throw him into a position. And he just hits the ground running and does it really well. Started as centre-back first half. Second half switched to left-back. But that was more about Ben Davies' issues. Ben Davies trying to play as a left-back. He was getting caught up the pitch in the inverted role, and it was leaving Archie exposed. And there was the disallowed goal, as we're meant to say. That very much was a moment where Archie was exposed and had a couple of players running at him. And I think just after half-time, it was the logical move to... that was the only quibble I had about the lineup, was almost like Archie Gray is so adaptable, and also the inverted nature of the fullbacks means that he would come into midfield anyway. I kind of thought, why didn't you just have Ben Davies as the centre-back? I thought that it's not like something I revised after the change at half-time. It was before the game. I kind of thought, I don't see why you're not playing them that way round. But it worked really well after that. And that moment I spoke about when he had two players trying to pen him into the corner. And he just took this little glance and just dragged the ball out from under his feet and then backheeled it behind him. It was just like, even the Ferencvaros fans were like, "Oh," you can just see. I was like, "Okay, that's class. It's absolutely class." And there was this another pitch long run that he did down the left, which a little bit of the Gareth Bale's about it. He just kept going and going and going, and actually ended up taking one touch too many and got tackled in the box. But yeah, he's just going to be something special. And look, he's £40 million player, so it's not like it's a surprise. He just is going to be brilliant, and I can't wait till we see him in the midfield. You know, the moment he plays in midfield, we're going to see one of these performances that I know is coming, and hopefully you'll all come back to the comments under this and go, "You did say," and then look, everyone's saying. I'm not taking that as an exclusive because we've seen it. We saw him against Chelsea for Leeds in the Cup last year. But he is going to be something. I still firmly believe he's going to be Spurs Gerrard-esque type player in that midfield. It's going to be phenomenal. Postecoglou was asked about the youngsters and chucking them in, and he said, "I wouldn't say I chucked them in. With all these things, you've got to be really careful with young players, and I certainly am. The first thing is they're part of our first team squad, not because I want some young players, it's because they earned that spot, and then it's about how to help them develop and the moments we need to put them in there, the moments we need to hold off. And we can't discount the fact that Archie's only 18, Lucas is only 18, and I thought Archie was brilliant today. We asked him to play in two different positions, and it's incredible how he just adjusts and he's able to bring his game to wherever we put him. Lucas worked hard. Will was unlucky with a couple of moments when we could have got a goal. These guys are there because they've earned their spot, but they're an important part of our development because whilst we want to be a team that has an impact this year, it's important we're developing players along the way so that whatever sort of period of potential for success or opportunity for success exists, it's elongated because of the young players you've got through. I just think tonight all those boys will come to me and go, "Okay, that was tough, it was different, but we got through it and we won." And he was asked about the switch from Gray from centre back to left back, and he said, "I felt like we were starting to get on top and stronger. Archie's got a great capacity to run, and I thought putting him at left back, he'd be able to get forward for us more, and Ben with his ability to defend and his left foot meant he could get the ball out to the left side. I just wanted to use Archie's energy as much as anything. He did a good job for his first half, but I just felt in the second half we could put them under more pressure if we had somebody on the left-hand side in the same way as the right-hand side who could get forward and get back. And I thought he did that really well. In his first run, he ran the whole pitch. It helped us balance our attacks on both sides. So, yeah, his energy is off the chart. He was a little bit knackered. He actually picked up a whack, Archie Gray, and I think it was a painful one. I feel like maybe the Ferencvaros player, his boot went in an unfortunate place, let's say. It could have been that, or it might have been something groin related, but certainly from the press conference yesterday, Postecoglou didn't report on any new injuries, so hopefully that's all it was, just a painful whack in the private place. But yeah, he's just got this energy, this motor to go all day long, up and down the pitch, really. But so I thought the young players did well. Whatever we're going to call them, Angie's Angels, Angie's Adolescents could be another one. Postecoglou's pupils, Postecoglou's protégés, whatever you want to call them, but just the Tottenham teens. There's something being built with these young players, and still got Wilson Odebear as well to come back as well, 19 years old as well. And I love the fact they're all kind of knocking on the door now, and they are. Spurs are set up for a very exciting future, and while also operating in the now and the present, which is I love that. It's just, of course, I want Spurs to be successful now. 100% I do. I want trophies. I want all of that. But I also want players that we can identify with for years to come. And hopefully that's what they're building at Spurs now. And one of them, hopefully, is Brendan Johnson. He just keeps on going. He's like a freight train now, just constantly going. 5 goals in 5 consecutive games now, or a goal in 5 consecutive games now. And like I said, goals in important moments. 3 winners and 2 that have been quite important in the scheme of the game as well. I think it was Matt Barlow from the Mail asked afterwards. He kind of apologised and said, "I'm sorry, I've got to ask you about Brendan Johnson again." But he said, "Look, it's not a coincidence, is it, that he keeps putting that ball inside the left-hand post or against the left-hand post and in." And Postecoglou kind of grinned when he said that. He said, "No, it's not a coincidence." And I thought he was unlucky with the one that hit the bar as well. He's in a great vein of form and obviously feels good about himself at the moment, really confident. I guess with all attacking players, goals and assists, they kind of thrive on that stuff. But I've said before, it's been fantastic for us. Even if you look at his figures last year, moved to a big club and still got a decent return of goals and assists. It was always curious to me why people were singling him out, because if you compare him to other wingers in the league, his numbers always stacked up anyway, and now he's probably bypassed all of them. I had no doubt he would make a massive impact for us. Now he's making not just an impact, but changing games for us. Again, still a young guy, still working hard and wants to learn. So that's great for us. Yeah, I don't think it's any coincidence. The two players that probably Postecoglou's pushed the most for over the last year or so, Johnson and Solanke, are the ones that feel like they're fitting the system like the best. Shock horror. He knew what he wanted and it's working. Yeah. So Spurs, actually, you might have seen the Ronaldo image that did the rounds. Maddison shared it. It's essentially Ronaldo circa the World Cup with the half and half haircut thing, but with Brennan Johnson's face absolutely perfectly kind of overlaid on top of it. And yeah, Spurs shared it again after he scored last night. And I asked Maddison about Brennan Johnson and that image and him putting it up there and just about the whole situation, because I know they're really close friends. And the fact that obviously Brennan's come off of social media, and we know the toxic nature of social media. It can be a very unpleasant place, and I think he's creating a very powerful kind of message about people coming off social media and how it positively is affecting their lives and the way they kind of do their job as well. It's not a good thing for social media whatsoever. And yeah, so I asked Madders about it all in the press conference ahead of the game, and he said, Brennan is first and foremost a very good friend. I'm close with him. I think a lot has been made of him coming off of social media, which to him was probably not such a big thing. He's the type of guy to have a break from that stuff anyway. People have maybe read too much into it, but since then he's gone at 4-4. This was obviously before the fifth goal, so I don't think I'll be telling him to re-download anytime soon. He's a great kid, a brilliant player. No one has ever doubted that, but he's really showing it at the moment consistently. It's not easy to score 4 games in a row. He's a brilliant lad and a great friend of mine, so I'm always there for him. That image, the Ronaldo one, was a bit tongue-in-cheek. We found it funny when it was put in our group chat, but hopefully he can continue this form because he's a real threat for us. He can do damage to a lot of oppositions in the Premier League and Europe, so I like to see him in that rich vein of form. Yeah, he is. He's one of the most in-form attackers right now in the Premier League and just in the European game, I guess. And the good thing as well for him is that for Tottenham, is that he's going to get more and more attention. The better you do, of course, the more opposition teams study you and look for ways of stopping you. But what will happen is, if they try to focus too much on stopping him, it's going to allow space for a lot of other very talented players at Spurs to also create havoc. So yeah, it's gonna work quite nicely for him, I think, and also for Spurs. And like I said, I'd love it if it keeps going. I'd love it if these goals keep rolling in, right inside that left-hand corner. It's I love when you can see something that is worked on so much, and drills and drills and drills on a training ground, and you just see him doing it over and over again, because naturally it just becomes. And funny how this was a Conte thing. It was almost a way of doing something, so it just becomes your body's natural reaction in a moment. So fantastic stuff. And I mentioned Solanke earlier. Obviously, he's received his first call up to England squad on Thursday. Actually, first time in 7 years almost, which is mad. Ivan Toney, no one signing him in Premier League or Europe, and him moving to Saudi Pro League is kind of taking him out of the England picture. And Solanke, as a true poacher should, has got into the right position to take advantage of that. Postecoglou said after the game on that, credit to Dom, it's reward for his hard work. I've got no doubt that he'll be a fantastic player for us, and if he continues, as I know he can, he'll be a great asset for the England team. So 3 goals and 3 starts for him. We'll have to tweak it because he did come on in the final 10 minutes in Budapest, but that's going to leave him nice and fresh for the Brighton game tomorrow. I mean, there's a few players that are going to be fresh. Like I said, he kind of picking that team, it all worked out very nicely for him, because Mickey van der Ven, Rodrigo Bentancur completely rested up and fresh for the game. Destiny Udogie, Postecoglou thinks he, as long as he gets through training yesterday and today, should be fit. So that's another fresh player. Jed Spence was left at home just to kind of get his fitness up to the levels they want, just in case he has to play either for a doggy or potentially Porro. You never know. Porro played the full match on Thursday night. Radu Dragic, of course, also fully fresh if he wanted to change it up there. Like I say, Solanke barely got on the pitch. Johnson, Maddison, Kulusevski only got about 25 minutes each, so they all should be pretty fresh for them. They're quite fit players right now, and that shouldn't be too much on them. And of course, Brennan Johnson, another goal. Technically, Maddison, an assist as well. So that's 7 players in all, really, who should be quite fit and fresh. And then he's just got to kind of decide on, you've got Werner, Romero, Porro and Vicario and what you're going to do with them. Maddison, it sounds bad to say, but from a personal, selfish perspective, I would love to have seen Maddison get back in the England team for everything he's done. But from a personal, selfish kind of viewpoint, it kind of keeps that fire burning in him a little bit more for Tottenham. And he actually spoke about that. It was before he knew whether he was in or out of the England squad. On Wednesday, he spoke about it, and it's kind of proves what I'm trying to say. Is he said, and this was about not being in the last squad. He said, whenever in life you have setbacks, it can go one of 2 ways. And the gaffer has said that before. It's how you deal with that. You can either let it swallow you up a little bit or feel sorry for yourself and go down that route, or you can respond in the right way, or the only way to get back to being successful and getting back in the England squad and playing at the top level for Spurs again. It wasn't a massive thing, missing out on the squad. I feel like I actually finished the back end of last season quite well. I always want to prove people wrong. Any sort of doubters, people who question, I always want to prove them wrong. That is where I get some of my hunger from, wanting to be the best version of myself for Tottenham, my teammates and people close to me, but also to prove people wrong who doubt me. I get satisfaction from that. I feel really good at the minute and I feel sharp. Hopefully that will continue. So, it was... that's what I mean. I kind of feel like he's going to want to keep proving people wrong, and that's going to benefit us and Spurs and everything. So that's not to say I don't want him to get back in the England squad, but it's helpful for him to keep going in this vein of form that he's in. Sunday, Postecoglou's 50th game in charge. That's come around quickly. And I love the fact that we're 50 games, it will be 50 games in, and we're starting to see the version of the Postecoglou Tottenham Hotspur that we want to see and he wants to see, with spirit, style, thrilling youngsters bursting onto the scene and physicality and pace about the team. And all the while, I think it's even more exciting that it's going to get better. It can still get much better than it is. This is still the early levels of a Postecoglou team. But, these last 5 games have been fantastic and hopefully it continues. So, press conference, which I wasn't at yesterday because I was still... What was I doing at 11 o'clock yesterday? I was sat in the lobby of my hotel looking out at the rain while writing up my talking points. Injury news. He was asked about that first. First things first, last night, everyone all good. Obviously fairly tired, but physically no issues from last night's game. Then out of the guys who stayed back, Destiny we think will be okay. We have training today and tomorrow, so he has to get through that. Sonny's unlikely. He's pushing hard, but I just don't think the turnaround will be quick enough for him to be available at this stage. And then that's it. The others are kind of long-term. He was asked, can you rule Sonny out of the international break? He said, well, yeah, if he doesn't play for us, and it's not like he's close and it makes sense. But then again, we have to be mindful that international duty, national teams take over. They are the custodians of their players, and we've given them all of the medical information. They understand, and their understanding of the situation. He was asked about the 50 games in charge of Spurs. He was asked, where do you see Spurs in 100 games into your reign? And he said, many wouldn't have said, I'd make 50, mate, even when I was on about 46. Look, obviously, as managers, there's always a ticking clock against our tenure. Every time you reach a milestone, it's always an indication that people believe in what you're trying to do. It has flown by, to be fair. Obviously, 15, 16 months, 50 games, but I enjoy every one of them. And hopefully the next 50 are ones where we can make a real impact. As I was just saying, hopefully better and better and better. And he was asked about the fact that this is Spurs' best winning run for 3.5 years and how close is it to the level of the team he wants it to be. He said, well, it's always kind of a shifting measurement or scale. Every time you go on any consistent run of form, and I think we've been consistent all season, obviously the results in the last 5 games have been rewards for the performances, but that always makes you even more eager to keep pushing on and get better and see what kind of level we can reach. I think we're a developing side, still very much a young side. The squad is still developing together, which suggests whatever markers we set at the moment, we should be able to exceed. But there's no doubt when you win games like we have in recent times, that belief and that energy accelerates. And the key to that is to keep it going. You don't want to let it go. You want to work as hard as we have to keep the momentum going. He also spoke about Fabian Herzler, the Brighton manager, actually came to it sounded like it was Spurs last year as like just to get some experience and learn. And this was before obviously he was Brighton boss, and he said he was asking so many questions he actually had to palm him off and his staff, Postecoglou. And he was asked at the end of the broadcast section of the press conference, would you have let Herzler into the training ground if you knew he was going to become a Premier League manager? And, because obviously he would have told him a lot about the Postecoglou way. And he said, yeah, mate, I would have done. There's nothing wrong with being a nice person. If someone knocks on your door and wants a cuppa, let them in your house, mate. He's not going to take your furniture or steal your cutlery. I would let him in, mate. They might want to steal your furniture or your cutlery. I might just try and rock up and knock on his door and try and get... I'm not really... Don't do that. Don't anyone do that. That's weird. As soon as I said that, I was like, that sounds a really stupid thing to say. Yeah. Oh, he was also asked about Archie Graham and what we've spoken about him playing at different positions at such a young age. And he said, well, he's got no choice because I'm putting him there and that is part of his development. But look, probably helps that he comes from a footballing family. He's been exposed to football since the moment he was born. So I think he understands the game. He takes in information really well. Training, he's constantly looking for more and more information, which helps. And then he just has a great temperament. He seems to take things in his stride and not let it affect him. On Thursday, I played him in 2 different positions and both are probably the least preferred for him. He's played as a right fullback and in central midfield. I am at left centre-back and left back. And I thought he did brilliantly again. That's a great point. I hadn't even thought about that. He was playing left centre-back as well. I'm not going to just put him in different positions at the moment. Different positions. At the moment, we're using him where we need him. I think hopefully that gives him confidence in how much I trust him. Eventually, we will settle him into an area, but him playing at the moment, he's played Carabao Cup game away, 2 European games, exposure in the Premier League already in the first 10 games of his Tottenham career, which I think is brilliant for us. It's true. It was asked about Timo Werner and the recent little run of misses, the 2 against United and the one on Thursday night, and he said, look, it was 14 days ago those questions were asked of Brennan. It's where we're at in this world. We just think he's missed 2 chances, so he's hopeless. No, he's not hopeless. All footballers at this level are very, very good footballers. If you write a bad article, it doesn't mean you're hopeless. You go, actually, I could have done better there, but I'll write the next one better. Actually, on Thursday, Timo, in his first action, took on the winger, put in a brilliant cross for Will, and Will didn't quite get on the end of it. If that goes in, he's had a great assist. He gets a 1-on-1. If he scores that, if in the last 2 games he gets a couple of goals, then we'd be having a different conversation. But that's the fine lines. In terms of his general play, I think his last 2 games have been really good for us. He's been taking on his players, getting in the right areas. Yes, goals help. We've seen that with Brendan for those kind of positions. But that doesn't mean he's not a good player. And that's where I get really annoyed when they put everything on that moment to say he's not a good player. Of course he's a good player. He's a fantastic player. Scoring goals would help him, would help us, yes, but we'll persevere with him because I still think he's contributing to the team. As with Brennan, 14 days ago I was sitting here answering questions about Dom Solanke and Brennan. Now we're talking about Dom in the England team and Brennan scoring as well, so it's fine balance. I think Timo's performances in the last 2 games have been better for us in terms of doing his role as a winger in our team. So yes, a goal would be great for him, but not for me to say I expect more from him in that position. So that was really good. That was a good defence of him. Kind of, like I say, leans towards him playing tomorrow at Brighton. And yeah, just a goal off his backside would be great. Just anything to kind of get him that confidence, get the groove. He's got to remember what he was at Leipzig. Leipzig, he was 34 goals in 1 season. He instinctively then knew how to score goals. I think he's just been beaten out of him with just low confidence. So hopefully that will change. Because if he can contribute goals to his game as well, he's going to be a terrific player down the left for Spurs. He also was asked about Richarlison and his progress from injury. He said he's going well. Hopefully post-international break will get him involved in team training. And then he was asked, it was my colleague Tom who was at the press conference in my absence, about how keen he is to just kind of have Richarlison and Solanke as interchanging options. And he said, I'd love that. That's exactly what we want. That was the plan at the start of the year, and then you end up second game of the season, neither of them is available. We've got a hell of a lot of games and we want to be competitive in all of them. I can't wait to get Richie back available. When he played for us last year and was fit, he scored goals. So to have him and Dom as our strikers, and Richie can play wide as well, I can't wait to get him back. His recent history over the last 2 or 3 years, that he hasn't been able to sustain it. He's broken down. What we're trying to do this time around is to do everything right. So when he comes back, he stays back. That's the key with Richie, and hopefully that is the case. It is. It's a massive thing. Because with Will Lancashire as well, then you suddenly got 3 really good options up front to lead the line, and everything changes. You've got depth, and like I said earlier, you could rotate and change the team without the quality level being affected as well, or the ability to play in the system. There's also an interesting question he was asked in the embargo section, which went out late last night. You've often heard me saying here, one of my biggest gripes with the whole kind of leadership at Tottenham Hotspur, Daniel Levy, ENIC, owners, whoever you want to call it, is that this ridiculous flip-flopping in recent years from one style of manager to the next. And it's been an absolute farce. It's been ridiculous. You can't talk about having a DNA and having this way that you want your teams to play, the Tottenham way, and then you appoint managers in Jose, Conte, Nuno, to a degree, all of them, who naturally don't play in the way that kind of we want to see at Spurs. And that's not to say they're wrong in the aspects of bringing in people who are experienced winners in Conte and Jose and trying to go down that, but then don't pretend that your club has a DNA that you're trying to stick to, because it's just rubbish. So there was a really interesting question, actually. He was asked about that flip-flopping approach and how that compares to someone like Brighton, who Brighton bring in, have a very set style. Every coach they bring in fits within that style. And that means that you don't then have these costly reassembling, revamping of the squad each time you change manager, because the players fit each of these managers' system, and there's slight differences to them, but ultimately they work because they're part of the club ethos. And that is exactly what kind of almost Spurs claim to have, but really don't do. So Postecoglou was asked kind of which he preferred, and his answer was really good, because it fits absolutely nicely into what I feel as well. He said, it just makes important decisions in a club a lot easier, in my opinion. Actually, sorry, I've got to get this right. He wasn't asked that. He was asked whether Brighton are a good example of a club sticking to a certain style and thus enjoying easier transitions between managers over the years. I want to get the question right so you know exactly what he was answering. And he said, it just makes important decisions in a club a lot easier, in my opinion. If you know what you want in terms of style of play, style of player, and there's plenty of evidence, you look at a manager, how have his teams played? You look at a player, how has he played? But if you don't look at that and you just say, he's a great manager, let's bring him in, but I want him to play attacking football, but he hasn't done that in the past, then it's more likely to not be a good fit. It's the same with players. It's about what the club identifies as important to them. Brighton have identified and picked managers who have all done well for them, because they say, this is what we want, this is what we've got, and this guy has shown evidence that he can do that. And it's the same with players. Unless you have a real clear idea of what kind of striker, winger, centre-back you want, then just going for the best centre-back, let's say, is not necessarily going to work. And just going for the best manager is not going to work. And it's a big part of the decisions I've made in my career about where I'm going. Do they know what they're getting? Because I'm not changing. It's not like they can put me in and say, play counter-attack, because that's not going to happen. But at the same time, clubs, owners, they get pressured into saying, he's a great manager, go and get him. But is he a good fit? I think it's the way to go, but others choose a different path. So yeah, Big Ange on the Big Al thought train. That was weird. Don't know why I said that. But it just has been my biggest issue with this kind of whole recent years, and it's the reason why Postecoglou is the first manager in half a decade to be one that lasts a full season, because they haven't really had any idea of what direction they wanted to go in. And they have exactly that, tried to fit win-now managers into a project club, and managers who have a very, different style of play to how they want or how the fans want the club to be. And yes, there's an element of pressure. Yes, there's an element of pressure also from us as supporters as well, that we want success after so long without silverware. But that doesn't mean you abandon your principles and your beliefs for it. That's where, if anything, they haven't been brave. And Postecoglou's appointment probably is the bravest thing they've done. And sticking with him will be braver still. And I really hope they do, because he knows where he's going and he knows where he wants the club to be going. And when you finally got that leadership within the club, please let it flourish. Please let it lead. But we'll see. We'll see. Very quickly, because I saw it last night. Luka Vuskovic, a couple of goals for Westerlo, did really well. He's scored some goals. I think he's got four or five goals this season, maybe 4. Yeah, we'll get to see him next year. Another 18-year-old to come to the club, and Heung-min as well. Another one. There's so many young players coming along. Yang will see in January. I think Luka Vuskovic is the summer because it has to be after he turns 18, which is, I think, in late February. I think. But yeah, so yeah, exciting stuff. And it's lovely, isn't it, to be doing positive chats. I was enjoying just throughout in Budapest, every time I'd stop and have a chat with Spurs fans, and it's just nice to talk about Spurs right now. It's really fun. We're not going like, oh, talking about it. But there we are. Right, I've got to head off because I've got to go and do a 10-mile run for my marathon training. Wish me luck. I'm actually doing that newsreader thing of bottom half is completely different to my top half. It's I'm not naked or anything, don't worry. It's but I'm wearing running stuff, lower half, and just a random t-shirt on top, not exactly like a newsreader. I don't think on the 10 o'clock news they're going to be having anyone wearing a Jurassic Park t-shirt when it's on later. But yeah, as I often say, every other video, the TCS Marathon donation link for cancer research, a great cause. It's I'll pin it to the top of the comments below. 905 of you wonderful people have donated so far. It's incredible. We're close to creeping over the 17,000 mark. We're almost there. My initial expectations were nothing. I was like, if I can get to £1,000, that would be amazing just to give that to charity. So where we're at, I'm dreaming of maybe getting to 20. My wife, Mrs. Gold, has far loftier ambitions. I'm like, we're not going to get there. Calm down. If I could get anywhere near 20 by the time I do the marathon, that would be amazing. It would be just the most incredible thing for such, just a wonderful, wonderful cause. Right, time to run off, quite literally. Got to head off. As I always say, stay healthy, stay safe, look after yourselves, and I shall catch you later. Goodbye.